Ho, good listeners, and welcome to the Theater Vision podcast. Theater Vision, discovering the future in Bay Area theater. Today I have with me a company that I would call a baby company in the Bay Area because they are so new and they're just starting out, and also they're comprised of very, very young people. I have with me three representatives from Birdbath Theater Company. I have with me Jesse Lumb, David Abrams, and Genevieve Schaad. Will you guys introduce yourselves?
Hello.
Hello.
All right, my name is Genevieve Schaad. I am the programs manager for Birdbath Theaters.
And I'm David Abrams. I'm founder and artistic director.
And I'm Jesse Lumb. I am a co-founder and artistic producer.
Thank you guys all for being here today. It's really awesome to have a company as new as you guys and as young as you guys on the podcast. And I'd love to hear quickly about what the purpose of Birdbath Theaters is.
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I'm kind of interested to hear with Jesse and Genevieve. I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think the purpose?
Wow. The purpose. So many purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, theater is... It's just so important and beautiful. We want to bring new shows to new audiences. I mean, there's already a good amount of theater in Marin, and yet we've already found that there's room for more.
Yeah.
And this is, what is the purpose? God.
No, it's good. I like it.
Share art and create new opportunities, and also work with our community with community building and connect people that might not otherwise be connected, and open their eyes to all the different possibilities with drama.
I love that.
Yeah, I would definitely say have fun, make experiences, make art, and like bring people together.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree too. And I think a lot of the purpose comes out of, for me, I'll speak for myself, my experiences in theater, and particularly in the education system that we have here in America. Particularly, I went away, got my MFA program, and all of the kind of schooling that I was exposed to was very much preparatory for going off to either Broadway or LA. And those were the two choices. If you wanted to get a master's degree or intensive training in theater, you were going to get a lot of debt on you, and you're going to have to work it off by working in these kind of big industry centers. And so a big kind of shift for me was after I graduated and realized, you know what, maybe I'm not lazy. Maybe it's just what they were preparing me for is not exactly what I want to do. That theater in itself, the process, the act of giving one's time to something that is both personally transformative and, if the stars align, transformative for the whole group that's there on any given night, is really kind of the most important thing, and it's interesting, Nick, you gave us this piece of paper, and I was sitting there thinking about purpose and feeling like, what if the purpose was just simply to make theater?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels kind of like a cop-out, and I think it's also like something really important is there too.
Oh, I totally understand that. And so you talked about how your experiences brought you in this company. How did both of you guys, Jesse and Genevieve, how did you guys get involved here?
Woo!
Well, I will say that I was there the day that Birdbath as a name was started. David and I were on a walk in Fairfax, and we were going just by this creek, and we looked down, and there was a bird there, and the bird's bathing, and it just transfixed us. And we kind of just watched it, and we watched it, and we watched it. And besides the normal human questions of how does it know when it's done? What if it never stops bathing? There was also a beautiful stillness. Everything kind of stopped, and just the experience of it, and the bird just refreshing itself and bathing itself, and it was so simple, but it was also profound. It was, I don't know, one of those moments that David has always wanted to start a theater company, and I just love hanging out with friends and doing new things. That when he came at us and sort of said he wanted to start this theater company, Jesse will say how it kind of all kicked off, but I definitely felt like I did want to be involved with whatever they were doing. And I had no theater experience, but I thought, okay, well, I love organizing things, and I am a pretty natural manager and program manager. So it just kind of clicked in, and then the stage manager role was kind of the first thing that I slipped into. It's just been awesome. So I love theater now. I get it. I never got it before, but it's great. So that's me.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah. I remember getting a phone call, I remember Jen telling me a year ago about this time last summer, saying, oh yeah, David is thinking about starting a theater company. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? That's a dream come true. I'm going to call him. And I can still remember on my break calling David and be like, David, Jen told me you want to start a theater company. That's awesome. How can I help? And David was like, oh, well, yeah, maybe this and that. And I'm like, also, I'm working on a new piece that, maybe you could help me with. And David was like, yeah. A couple months go by. And then I came across this script called The Aliens, which I knew David would be excellent as a cast member of, as well as our dear friend Rob Garcia. Brought it to David and Rob. They loved it. And afterwards, David was like, this could be Birdbath Theater's first show. This could be our inaugural production. And then a week or so later, David asked me if I wanted to basically just start this project with him, and we've been in love ever since.
It's true.
As we talk about your first production of The Aliens, so how was getting that production on its feet, and how was the run of that production?
It was a dream. It really was. Yeah. It was just one of those just life-altering theater experiences that I think I could speak for myself. I'm always looking for when I sign up for a project, because it was Jesse Lumb, our friend Rob Garcia, and myself acting in it, and Genevieve stepping in as stage manager. And we just got to play, it was one of those moments in time that everything that I feel like we had all kind of experienced individually, and have shared, we're all, Rob and Jesse and I are all College of Marin, if not alumni. We've visited the club of College of Marin and been inspired by their program there. So we were able to come together and work in a way that we hadn't really had a chance yet to. And it was magic. It was really fun.
For the space, specifically, using our own backyard, which was a perfect setup for this particular play. That was such a blessing and joy. And, there was a lot that came with that. Hosting a show at your own house had its own challenges, but we faced it head on. And, being able to direct it was my first time directing a full-length play. And that's a crazy challenge, directing and acting in it. But the character that I was playing was small enough where I felt like I could handle that, and I felt good because David was going to be assistant directing it. And it was really such a collaboration, though. All four of us were just involved in all the nuances of that show. And then to bring Andrew in on guitar was such a blessing. Out of left field, too. Andrew, who has now become one of our core members with Birdbath, Andrew Byers.
Yeah, the setting was great, too, to have it in the backyard. And we had our school, we have this little school bus that's on the side, and we had concessions out of that. And I remember one day we put it on, I think, nextdoor.com or something to publicize to, our neighbors to come in since it was such a community event. And then, less than a half hour, the fire marshal comes to the door. And I was like, oh, no. We've been trying to get a permit. There was all this trying to catch up. And then he said, "No, I'm just here." He was so friendly. He just wanted to check out the space. And the only thing he told us was just like, make sure you have a cover over this extension cord and have fun or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really sweet to meet all our neighbors actually through that production.
Yeah.
It was one of those like serendipitous, so many things came together in such a beautiful way. Robin Jackson with helping with photography, Richard Squarey, another one of our mentors and core members of Birdbath, helping with building the risers in the backyard. That show went so well, and we felt so good about it. We actually want to take it to Scotland next year.
Cool.
For the Edinburgh Festival, the Fringe Festival.
Take it on the road. That'd be cool.
Yeah, so that's potentially in the works.
One of my favorite memories from the show was actually the preparation before the show, because I'm very much used to, okay, I'm an actor, so that means I need to go in the green room, do my warm-ups, prepare, and then I go out on stage. And there's obviously great benefits for that. But again, one of the things that I love about this company, I love about what we're doing, is we were the ones sweeping the stage before the show. And I found that to be the most comforting, the most enlivening warm-up and part of my process that I could think of, because I was literally preparing the space for what was coming next. And so in process, preparing myself. So that's like one of my favorite memories about the show is sweeping up before.
Setting up the chairs.
Yeah.
Every time we set up the chairs, I was channeling Eileen Grady and Sarah Pearson from the Mountain Play as they would run around like maniacs getting ready for all their shows up there and just how much they do it yourself.
Yeah.
Just do it yourself theater idea. Theater Lunaticos doing it. There's all these there's so much to be said about that. It's a joy.
And so after Aliens, you guys moved out of the backyard and into a theater and increased your cast size, increased your production size, and did a production of Rhinoceros by Eugene Ionesco. Now, how was mounting that production?
Awesome. In like the real sense of the word. Like there were moments of just like, is this going to happen? Like, here we are doing something that was in essence really simple in terms of the production elements, we build some risers, which, and we get a few costume pieces, but it was an actor heavy show, the Aliens. And a lot of it was just learning how to be comfortable in silence together. But doing Rhinoceros, like you said, it was a new space. We were negotiating and figuring out how to work with, the owners who were lovely, the Belrose family. And there were just definite moments of like, is this going to happen? Did we bite too much of a cookie? And it was a big mouthful, but it was a success. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I was going to say triple the budget, triple the cast, triple the audience size.
Yep.
It was just, it was like, okay, well, if we keep on going this way, then... But I think that for that one, too, like, the stars aligned.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, both productions. The second... for Rhinoceros, it was like people who were just coming home to their hometown that you knew. Other people who had never been acting before, but somehow fit perfectly in roles. It just... And then our costumer was just fantastic, who loved the style, and everyone just had, like, somehow, like, they were meant to be at that show.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wyatt Dunkerley
for the costumes.
Amazing costume.
Yeah.
There was so much momentum going into that production that kept it going, and there were high hurdles to jump, but there was no turning away from it.
Yeah.
We're like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And
And that was one of the things too about the show was I just felt so much support in terms of nature, in terms of life kind of showing up and saying, hey, rhino, just literally seeing the word rhinoceros or literal drawings of rhinoceroses everywhere. And it was this thing where it's just like, anytime I was just like, I don't know if we can do it, there was just this affirmation. And I think that is such an important lesson that I took from it is really listening to kind of the muses especially when it's difficult, because the aliens, we were just like basically running around collecting fairy dust that was falling on us. It was so simple and easy. Whereas Rhinoceros was very much saying like, okay, you need to stand up, you need to dig in, you got to work for this. And we had Romulo Torres leading us in that charge as a director, and through the theater graces, we were really blessed with the production.
We also had some help from Gary Gossner.
Yeah.
From Marin on Stage. He
yeah.
helped provide us with some flats for our set, and and we reached out to Dave White for an old set piece from Comedy of Errors. More of that, like the more we reached out, the more we were getting in return. It was just, this community is really supportive with theater.
It was almost like 10x support, like triple everything else. But then the support pouring in was really special.
The feedback, gosh, people were donating after our shows.
Yeah.
It was just, it was really inspiring to keep going.
So between Aliens and Rhinoceros, what do you think makes your productions unique?
Ooh, can I answer this one?
Yeah.
I see it as it's a really immersive environment. And I think you went to both of them, right?
I went to both shows, yeah.
So it was like, in a backyard is so strange. Like, you have children yelling afar, and you have this great quality theater. It's just like the whole thing feels so immersive. And so, I don't know. There's something like the actors know that you're there, or everyone's taking care of you. There's just a real care and a delight. Not that other theaters aren't like this, but I just feel like there's something with our shows so far that have been really thoughtful in like the details, in the stylistic stuff, just all around has kind of that like unique holding and care for the audience. I would say is my love of it.
Yes. Something I was talking to somebody recently about Birdbath, and they were saying how, you guys are just doing shows that aren't being done around here. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. Rhinoceros, is not typically done these days, and The Aliens is a very new show. Andy Baker, a young playwright that we love. And now we're looking at Richard II, and people are like, oh, you're doing Richard III. And you're like, no, we're doing Richard II. And, that's just another one that you don't see very often, and that gets people really excited. And so that's unique with our show choices so far. But
yeah, and the locations too. Again, like the backyard, and the Belrose is such an interesting space. There's nothing really like it. It's just it's full of just these wonderful kind of like objects and and just all this character, and it was really important, we felt, to play Rhinoceros there because how overtly theatrical the space was. The space, like, again, was this character of we are a theater, which allowed us as actors to kind of play against that and play, again, in this kind of cabaret presentational style. That I think really was a important piece that helped make the plays work. And part of that too is one of the things that I was thinking about is, again, as Jesse was saying, like we had a few months in between our phone calls, and like during that time I was like in my little depression swing and wanting to create some theater, but just not feeling having the energy to do something about it. And one of the things I was doing at that time was watching a lot of Chef's Table. And that was a huge inspiration in terms of the vision for the theater. There was like all this desire, there's all this want and kind of that show for me in some ways was a big lesson as well as a great affirmation in terms of you can really do this, because I think the restaurant industry is a great kind of pointer in terms of what people can do to turn around something and like I think we all feel the theater is in need of some kind of sprucing up, maybe, or maybe it's more like returning to the essence of the theater. And I think that's the thing I was seeing in Chef's Table, is how much in the restaurant industry there's this return to like locally sourced meals, slow cooked, attention to detail, attention to the ambiance and the space, the whole immersive experience of what does it mean to go to a restaurant to have a meal. Those are the kind of questions that we've kind of asked ourselves of what does it mean to go to a theater. And so this has been...
Yeah, that leads to our next space that we're going to be operating out of, which is the Local Heroes at Key T, owned by C and with his partners Cassidy and everyone else that works there. So we're going to be doing theater essentially in a cafe space at Open Secret in San Rafael, and we're psyched about it. It's going to be very immersive, and we don't even know. We haven't even really. We're just starting to scratch the surface with that. But I'm most excited about how that space is going to, the community that we can bring into that space, and C, the owner of Kiti, has already breathed new life into that whole space. Open Secret has been a mainstay of spirituality, books, and knowledge and power in San Rafael, but C has brought this great tea service in there, and they already have a stage, but we're going to be using the other space as well in front of the stage, and that's going to be another unique experience for us.
Yeah.
And so, what would you say? You talked about your production of Richard II coming up, and you talked about how it's eating. You're in a cafe space, but you're not doing dinner theater. You're doing Richard II. Right. So, what's going to make that production really unique? What's your take on it?
Well, it's fascinating. Again, in my opinion, that we were looking at Richard II, kind of going forward with it, trying to fuse it with some Etta James music. Richard II as, again, he's a young king who's kind of out of his depths and really identified with the archetype of what it means to be a king, what it means to be God's substitute for England. And in his kind of wrapped up sense of ego there and identity, there is a lot that goes wrong in terms of him not seeing the discontent, all the damage he's doing. So we were looking at doing kind of this musical version of Richard II, but in the style of like a Brechtian musical, where the music is keeping one from just kind of sitting back and relaxing into watching a Shakespeare play, keeping an active, kind of thoughtful approach to it. And we were looking for kind of like this warehouse space, and that wasn't happening. So we found and suddenly had the moments, well, what about Key T? And we went to the space, and there's something really there. There's something that, again, we're listening to, and it's saying, hey, this might be a good spot for it. And part of that is kind of, again, letting the muses show us the way in terms of maybe that isn't the fullest way that we could present this. Maybe there's more in terms of the text. And again, it being at a spirituality bookstore, kind of coming at it from less of a drag angle at playing with identity and more from a spiritual angle of identity. Again, the idea is not a black and white thing where, to disidentify with our roles is great, but that can come at the price of not taking responsibility for your actions, which is something I see a lot in kind of this new age spiritual community, which I've been a part of, and it's something that I'm very interested in because it's not a black and white thing. And so we're trying to kind of take a look at Richard II in terms of maybe he's like a spiritual guru. Maybe he's maybe he has some self-help books that he likes to pass out. And maybe, again, he's wrapped up with whatever identity it is, because ultimately I think that's the main theme of the play that I'm interested in exploring, is our relationship with identity. You know, we don't have a monarch, but we certainly have some leaders that are really, really feeling it, or really into their ideas of themselves. So
yeah. Again, it's like the challenge is reading the space, you know, and seeing what's available to have an experience that people are immersed into, and so you can't really ignore the open secret surroundings. So we're, like David is saying, just seeing what's there in that particular movement that we're all sort of in, or it's very alive today, of this sort of like new age spirituality of, and you know, King Richard is God appointed, and there's a lot of that sort of holiness that's kind of already in the script. So just kind of asking that question. And again, that's something that is Birdbath unique, in that, like, we do have some commentary that we've made through the plays stylistically, but it's always been kind of more of a question, like looking into it open-endedly, than something that's like really heavy-handed. And so I think the same might be for this approach. Yeah. It's really early on, but it's been some of our conversations at least.
So currently, what are you guys working towards? What are some of your goals for Birdbath Theater, and where you guys see yourself in the future?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, again, I think the more I kind of know myself as an artist, which is, I guess, a never-ending process, the more I recognize my pattern of just kind of throwing things up and seeing what sticks, you know? And so a lot of this process with the business is figuring out, like, okay, well, what makes sense? What wants to happen next? With the idea of, like, what are we reaching for? And so part of that is opening up the education side to the theater. We've talked about kind of like some pedestals that are supporting the theater. There's the education. There's our kind of original productions. There's producing other people's work. Hopefully, once we get our own space, that's something that we're trying to work towards.
Some local.
Yeah, exactly. And then eventually, holding space for, I don't want to say like therapeutic drama, but drama as a therapeutic avenue. We recently went up to Seattle. The Jesse, Genevieve, and Richard Squarey and I went up to Seattle to study with Feast of Crispian, which is a theater company based in Milwaukee, who work at the VA hospitals in that area, using Shakespeare to ignite the different parts of our veterans' brains and getting them to talk to each other again, which is a great way to overcome some of the difficulties that are presented through PTSD, where brain activity is really kind of isolated to this section or that section. So the science of language and metaphor, and again, you know, holding space for people to do their own work. You know, I don't think we need to fix anyone, but we can definitely hold space for people to explore drama, explore themselves through drama.
Great. Is there anything else anyone wants to say about Birdbath?
I was so like lost in that whole world that you just kind of like hinted. Because I do think that there's a lot of opportunities for theater. I'm like brand new at a theater, so I'm going to talk about like I know it so well. No.
Do it.
Is that it seems like it goes all the way down and all the way up, sort of feel. Like there's a just an aspect of putting on shows and the delight that is, and how much that brings people together and people really into seeing the shows and whatnot. But also bringing new people who've never done theater before into this. Like, to think that, oh, I could be on stage and performing is so radical, exciting. It's like a little child in me is so really thrilled about that idea. And I know that like in Rhinoceros, there were so many people that had never been on stage before. Mm-hmm. And it was like watching someone become more alive. Like it just really felt like they had a new purpose at that moment. And that was really unique to see. So as much as we can just allow that to happen, there's almost little that we have to do. It's just kind of all coming to us. But having our own, it just makes sense that one day having our own space is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because finding spaces constantly is always a challenge. So I know that that's probably a huge goal for us.
Yeah.
What would you say, Jesse?
Oh gosh, I just really appreciate the flexibility of this experience, the collaboration. Anything could happen with this company. Like we're just gonna keep going and keep doing this because I'll speak for myself. This is theater is my life right now, and I have a feeling it's gonna be my life for maybe for the rest of my life, and this is a way to do that, you know, like, gosh, and just bring as many people in as possible, all inclusive, opening people's eyes to some of the bullshit in this world and, you know, the hate and just spreading love on top of everyone. No, it's really inspiring. Art is just so, it's what I live for, and it's what, it's like the only answer sometimes. I feel like trying to get through this life. So I don't know. Birdbath is just about positivity. That's my final answer, David.
And shout out for Richard II if anyone listening.
Oh yes.
Yeah, Richard II auditions are coming up very, very soon.
That's right.
That. And then if you're not going to auditions, there is the production coming up in January, am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Wonderful. You can look Birdbath Theater up. They're on Facebook. They have a website.
Yeah.
And they have a page, Richard II, and all that kind of stuff.
We have an Instagram account.
Oh, Instagram account too.
We're trying to figure out how to work it.
So I really want to thank you guys all for coming on the podcast and talking about your company. It's really great to have you guys on here.
Nick, thank you for
being
such an awesome host and for starting this new podcast.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
Really exciting.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, you're a beacon of light in this community.
Seriously.
So thanks everyone for tuning into the Theater Vision podcast, and remember to stay relevant.